Hang on. Okay, I feel like I've heard of this staircase, but I did not know it was in Seattle.
I'm pretty sure it's in Seattle.
If it is, I will find it. Because
you will find it and climb it.
I want to climb this staircase so badly.
Man, this moment I heard about it, I was like, what? A staircase that you want to climb? That makes me want to climb it. I don't even need to see it to know I want to climb it.
You know, I wanted to start an Instagram for a while called, like, Staircases of Seattle, because it would not be the only irresistible staircase in this city.
That's
Seattle
a crazy
is weirdly
coincidence.
hilly. Yeah, right? And a lot of staircases, they are required for you to move around the city because it's just, it's too hilly otherwise. And some of these staircases look like they'll take you straight into Narnia.
Oh, wow. So they all have closets at the top.
Yes. And the bottom.
Narnia in, Narnia out.
Exactly. It's a brief reprieve from Narnia.
Oh, good lord. I also heard that's why cars in Seattle are built with legs so that they can actually climb those staircases.
Yeah, they haven't put them on the buses yet, so the buses do sometimes get stuck up the staircases.
Damn it, public transportation.
I know.
When will it be fixed?
You're telling me.
Hey, you know what else needs to get fixed?
What?
Welcome to Gamers Tell All, the the podcast that answers the question, what is the most significant thing you have learned from a game? And today, I am joined by Sam Afterthoughts. Hi, Sam.
Hello.
I actually did a cold open. Aren't you proud of me?
I'm so proud of you. I'm just sitting here impressed out of my mind.
The last time I did a cold open, I did the hottest open possible, where I just said, I'm going to do a cold open.
I hope that you will not take away any of my, like, online content creator credentials, but I don't know the difference between a cold open and a hot open, so all this is fine by me.
Yeah, cold open is basically just you're already chatting, and then you just roll right into the production, as opposed to a hot open, which is like an intro, where you're like, and welcome to the podcast. You know, something like that.
Theme music plays.
Yeah, I do actually have theme music. I found that if you speed up the intro music to the Spyro trilogy, it sounds just like you're about to start watching the nightly news. You just speed it up a little bit, and it sounds like a nightly news, like, intro stinger. It's like, dun 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 dun. It's like, wow, oh, stuff is coming over the what's the thing called? Where you press the boops to send the message. I forgot what that's called.
I don't know either.
The Morse code thing.
Me to know things.
The Morse code thing. I need you to know things. Do you know about maps?
We're both on our computers right now. Either one of us could take
fact checking will ruin
hands.
This podcast. Thank you. If this is a fact-free zone, I want opinions and opinions only.
Great, because I only have opinions about video games. I won't know anything about what I'm talking about, but I sure will tell you all about it.
Telegraph.
Ah!
That's what it is. That's what it is.
Hooray!
So you say you have opinions about video games. Tell me more.
I do. Well, as you no doubt know, I have a YouTube channel where I have been known to give some opinions about video games, and I've been really interested in hearing the perspectives from other YouTubers on this very podcast of yours, and I'm really, really excited about the topic of what games can teach us, what takeaways we can bring out of video games, because I think that's what's given me kind of a second wind in gaming. I kind of dropped the hobby for a while. I wasn't really playing anything, but then listening to everyone in this community talking about what they have personally brought out of games, and how they have, in so doing, enriched their own life, that really showed me just like how valuable this field is.
Oh, for sure. If you don't mind me asking, what made you drop gaming as a hobby before you were brought back into it by other essayists?
Oh, goodness. Oh, man. Okay. Well, I am... For a little while, this is a weird thing to admit on the internet. I got really discouraged around the time of Gamergate. I think I had just... Yeah, so I was going into game development, coincidentally, just at that exact time, like 2013, and seeing some of the conversations that were being had in gaming spaces, I was like, is this a space to which I would like to dedicate myself for the next 30, 40, 50 years of my life? And I ended up kind of deciding, like, I don't know if I have the stamina for that. And thank God so many other people did have the stamina for that, because I think a lot of people like myself who kind of went, I'm looking at this and this is not really the vibe for me. This isn't really how I feel like spending my time. The people who really stuck it out and kind of like made the community hospitable again.
Yeah.
I think a lot of those people are in the video essay community.
I mean, I don't disagree. I mean, it was such a shit show of a time for gaming culture. The fact that it sparked out of a rumor of an article that didn't exist, and like has, I guess even to this day, created like a culture of people like threatening violence and death threats in the gaming community, just from fans directly to developers and journalists and independent creators. I mean, it's calmed down gradually over time as people have come to stop caring or have gotten more information and realized that the impetus of the whole scandal was completely fabricated. But like, it has taken a lot of time to get people to say, hey, there's other kinds of ways to engage with games, and it doesn't need to be so restricted as a demographic. Like that identity politics that marketing around video games sold itself on for years kind of needed to just go away. And though I hate that it happened, my takeaway from Gamergate is that it kind of told the industry, all right, we're done with saying games are for boys, or like the classic toy marketing of gross out your sister, like kind of stuff. We're done with that for games, because when we do this for decades and make people form an identity around being a gamer TM, rather than just enjoying the hobby, it has really weird and bad fallout like Gamergate.
I think that like really like what you said, the broadening of the identities and demographics that can be associated with the term gamer, like it really was kind of like the perfect nexus in those years. We're looking at a broadening of who enjoys games, a broadening of who is capable of creating games, and a broadening of who should be represented within games. But then also it was, comorbid with the what is a game discussion, spurred by quote-unquote walking simulators,
right,
like Gone Home and Dear Esther. And I think that it really did just culminate into this perfect storm of stop trying to make games something different. And I think that we've kind of moved past that into a very beautiful landscape where we can have games like A Short Hike, which I just finished, which is undoubtedly a game, but probably would have fallen more into like the walking simulator category that was so maligned in those years.
Yeah, walk around, explore, talk to people. It's kind of what a walking simulator is. Even if you put it in a top-down, three-quarter perspective, that's still a way of engaging with a world. And we kind of, even though it existed in game development theory, exploration as a core tenet of design, existed long before walking simulators came into the picture, like, it did take some significant changes in people's mindset for people to see different core engagements and a different plurality of enjoyments in games as acceptable as games.
Yeah, as like worthwhile experiences. 100%. I'm very, very glad to be, I would say cautiously on the other side of that whole scandal, because I really do think it's just opened us up to exploring so much more of what games stand to offer.
Yeah, not let arbitrary restrictions prevent us from seeing what new things can be done with the art form and how much more we can get out of classic genres and making new genres all the time. So, to turn this, since we're right into the idea of talking about what games can teach us, I'm going to ask you the question of the podcast. What's the most significant thing you've learned from a video game?
So, I was asking myself this question as I was walking around yesterday, just in anticipation.
You knew it was coming.
I knew it was coming, and what I stuck on was just like this one little moment that is, coincidentally or not, very related to what we were just talking about.
All right.
This was such a weird moment for me. It was maybe a 10-second interaction that I have thought about routinely for the past decade. I was playing League of Legends with a friend, and he had never played it before. And so we're on Skype, I think, because it was those days. And wow, I haven't thought about Skype in
Before
so
better
long.
alternatives came along.
Yeah, I don't miss that. Sorry, people who worked on Skype. It was a great platform. And he's asking, okay, like, which character should I choose? Because League of Legends, phenomenal roster, even, back in, like, 2012, so many characters to choose from. It was a bit of an overwhelming decision, and I said, well, you should go with Ashe, maybe. She is a frost archer, so if an enemy comes near you, you can just shoot them, you'll slow them down, and she's got, like, a pretty shallow learning curve, I guess I would say. That's not the opposite of steep, but he pauses for a second, and he goes, but she's a girl character. And I was like, just very, very interested in that response. And I think that singular moment, like hearing his kind of candid reaction to being asked to place himself into, I guess, the body of a person he has not normally had to kind of express connection with, that was a big moment for me as like a game developer and as someone who enjoys games. I think what it taught me was when we are asking players to put themselves into that connection with their avatar, it seems to me that empathy bridge is really something that we do build over time. And having grown up playing games in, the early aughts, I think that a lot of like women like me, or female identifying people, we didn't really have a choice to step into the avatar, like a male-bodied avatar. Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of our like male identifying friends, they weren't necessarily maybe asked to do something similar. They were always kind of stepping into the shoes of an avatar that was a little bit more maybe physically relatable to them.
Right.
And so that's what excites me so much. Sorry, I'm rambling so much here, but
go on. I've got plenty I want to say, but I want to hear your perspective in full.
I guess I'll finish up by saying that one moment in a game taught me so much about what we are asking players to do when we say, build that empathy bridge with this avatar.
Right. I think the term empathy bridge is a good descriptor, because something I've written a lot about and thought a lot about is to what extent we identify with the character in the game. Is it a self-insert? Are we being asked to identify with someone else to take on that identity? Or do we use characters in games for a weirder term, which is alterity, which is identifying things that are not like us? Like if we're playing, say, an anti-hero or a villain, do I identify with the villain for the time, or do I know that I'm doing the opposite of what is me when I take on that role? And when you say that for the longest time, there weren't that many female protagonists in games that women could assume to identify with while playing, I feel like I have to say I completely understand that from two perspectives. One, because the fact that it was a surprise that Samus Aran was a girl at the end of Metroid just shows, like, on its face, the assumptions that people had about who was playing games and who were main characters as far back as then. And then I also have the same feeling when it comes to African American, non-white representation in player characters, because in the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 era, there were so many first-person shooter adventures, and the one that I always remember, I tell this anecdote all the time, which was Resistance Fall of Man. And this one was really weird. So get this. When you play the game, it takes on a very historical, what if fiction, sort of like, what if instead of World War II it was aliens, kind of thing. And you have this British lady doing a voiceover of all of the great heroics of the main character. And the main character is standard Call of Duty man, buzz cut, 30, young 40-ish, Caucasian, brown eyes, brown hair, most middle of the road, because the game industry absolutely considered relatability to the target audience when designing who the main character was. But it had a 2-player campaign. And when you had a second player in that campaign, they color swapped the model to have darker skin, so that player 2 would be black. It looked exactly the same, but player 2 was black. And this created a really weird historical dynamic, because the story was being told from the perspective of a reporter reporting on history, but the game itself, its own narration, left out the existence of a player 2, which is canonically a black person, which means the British historical newspaper of this world canonically left out the black person that was there for the entire events of the war, doing all the same things the main character was doing. A canonical removal of a black person from history in a game completely on accident.
That is fascinating, because you can see how that type of thing is completely, I can only assume, unintentional on the part of the developers.
I'm sure it was unintentional. I'm sure they thought, oh cool, we have an opportunity for inclusion. But because of the narrative they chose to tell, they accidentally fell into another accurate historical narrative.
Man, I can tell that's the kind of story that is going to completely stick in my brain as I'm developing, because I think that as developers grow more conscientious about these problems that we have done a horrible job at addressing in games in the past, as we look at how to build more inclusive games, this is exactly the kind of thing I think that we're all terrified of. Like, building a system that is exclusive or forgetful or, you know, callous and rude purely because the combination of like how the systems interacted was not examined thoroughly.
Right. A blind spot showed up and it didn't get caught early enough in development.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
So I actually want to pick your brain about this, because that's my experience of sort of the challenge of the empathy gap when it comes to my experience as a Black person, which was just because I just had to accept that I was going to be taking on the role of someone who is not Black in most games, and for the most part ignoring it, because in most games race wasn't the topic of the story. It didn't really matter, even though I would have liked to see it. And then I come to games that are a little more recent. Specifically, I want to talk about Rise of the Tomb Raider and the Parasite Eve reboot, Third Birthday, where that both fell into this very similar category, where it was strong female protagonist, but a feature of both of those games was that the female protagonist that you are playing as would very viscerally express pain and suffering and struggle while going on the adventure, would have clear damage to their outfit as you were playing. In Rise of the Tomb Raider, it was there to demonstrate violence and, you know, light gore. In Parasite Eve Third Birthday, it was used for titillation, which isn't great. Third Birthday is it's really got a lot of problems, narratively speaking. I had a fun time playing it. The game itself, I thought the video game part, the Ludo part was good. The narrative part, oh my gosh. It ends so bad. I won't even go into it. But I remember a quote from the developers of these games, and both had a very similar thing that they said. Maybe coming off of each other in some way, but they had said that they wanted the player to feel protective of Lara Croft, of Aya Brea. They didn't want the players to identify as the female characters that they were playing as. They wanted to feel like they needed to protect as a guardian, as like a father or husband or whatever, to protect the character that they themselves were controlling and embodying. And I always thought that was such a weird place to go when you're the one playing as the character. Wouldn't you identify as the character, not identify as a caregiver over your controlled character? We never had that thought for Gears of War Man, for Link, for Mario. I never felt like I was externally controlling Mario. I felt I was Mario. So why would that be different? Where does that come in? It's such a fascinating thought that you would be external to your character in a third-person game.
Yeah, I'm trying to put myself back into my own headspace playing first-person or third-person games. My most recent games, I guess, would be Hyper Light Drifter and Breath of the Wild. I played so much of that recently. And I think that there are moments in these games where you will be staring at a body that is so obviously not yours, and you'll see Link shivering in the cold, and you'll think, oh, poor Link. Oh, he looks so cold. Poor guy. And you will maybe feel like you're kind of letting him down, letting someone else down. So I feel like I can understand that. And then sometimes you'll slip back into me mode. This is me. I am running. I am scared. I am... When the experience of the player playing the game is a lot more similar to what the character is expressing. If I'm running away from a guardian and Link looks terrified, I'm also terrified. Those things are scary. So... I think that there is this kind of fluidity with which we move through how we're experiencing the player avatar, but I've never necessarily heard it communicated that way by a developer. I don't think it's good or bad. I think it's very, very interesting. What I would love to see is for developers to look into the power of asking a player to inhabit an experience that is not theirs, and ask ourselves as developers, like, how can we encourage a player to build that connection in those moments where we look at that person on the screen and go, that is me, you know?
Mm-hmm. I have nothing to back this up on, but I feel as though the more action, the more active a person is being with the controls, the more likely that they will hold that identity with the character. I suppose I have to say in any given moment, rather than as like a blanket statement, I identify with the character or not. If it is indeed fluid, and it seems like it might be very fluid, more so than I've given credit to in the past, but I would feel as though that the more active, the more constant the demand on the player to make decisions and take actions, the more that identity with the character will happen as a subconscious process. They won't really think, I'm feeling like I am this character. They will be acting and feeling as the character on its own. Whereas, like, in those quiet moments when Link is shivering and you're just kind of watching him play out his animation, and you see, oh, Link, poor you, I'm in my cozy house with a sweater and a cup of coffee, and and you're running away from frostbite. I don't know, how do you get, if that's the case, how would you get a person in a quiet or distinct moment of inaction to still feel identity with a character that is, at the moment, no longer under their control?
That's really hard for me to speculate about, because I don't think that this is a conversation that is, like, had as often as I would like. I think there are a lot of things that are easy for me to just talk about off the cuff, because I've heard a million different people talk about exploration in games, a million different people talk about difficulty in games, or what makes combat satisfying. But in terms of, like, the player avatar connection, even though in, like, a lot of our games, the player is spending a lot of time being connected to this avatar, I don't feel like talking about how to explore the potential in that connection, the power in that connection, I feel like that's just not a conversation that I have eavesdropped on enough for my own liking. I feel like I try not to speculate too hard about things that I am unsure about.
Oh, well, I love baseless speculation. The more baseless speculation, the more questions you form, the more conversations you can have. Like, apparently I've dropped a bomb on you, and so I feel very satisfied having gotten you to engage in a conversation you haven't thought of or weren't expecting.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I'm sure I'll be thinking about a lot more over the next couple of days, and you might see me under this very video leaving follow-up comments in a week.
I would welcome that so much, Perhaps this is a conversation that that some duo had in the deepest, dankest corners of the yearly GDC conference that
Oh gosh.
someone has written a long lost blog post about.
Well, so there are undoubtedly developers who have been exploring this topic, and unfortunately, I think that maybe games as like a medium were not ready, or like the game playing community were not ready to really be excited about that conversation, because what I'm thinking about now is Tale of Tales, and their game, I think it was called Sunset.
Tell me about it. I haven't heard of it.
So, in case anyone listening hasn't heard of Tale of Tales, they were an indie studio that released a number of fairly, I would say, controversial games. If you want to watch a video about one of them, Izzy's made a phenomenal video about The Path, which is a walking simulator, and a lot of people didn't really like it, a lot of people didn't get it, a lot of people got it and still didn't like it, and Izzy's makes a very compelling case for why this game is a phenomenal piece of art.
I actually think I have heard of The Path. I didn't hear it in any controversial sense. I saw people talking about The Path as, and maybe I'm thinking of a different game, but it was like a storybook, Little Red Riding Hood-esque, stay on the path and you'll get to the end, no problem. But then venturing off of the path made a sort of engage the player in conversations around the sort of traumas one would experience growing up.
Exactly, yeah, and Izzy's goes really far in detail in into the storyline of like each particular character, and so you can kind of see like in games like that, Tale of Tales as a studio was really interested in exploring like how do we tempt the player to compel the avatar to make certain choices that reveal more about what that avatar might be experiencing, but there's not necessarily that connection between player and avatar quite yet. The player compels, the avatar acts, the player learns about the avatar, but there's still kind of this separation. But then Tale of Tales released Sunset, and this I should look up what year this released. Let's see, Tale of Tales Sunset. So this was, very much in the twilight of the, what I would call still the Gamergate era. 2015 was when it released.
I hate that we can identify a period of time as Gamergate era.
The time when gamers were mad about everything. The many years stretch.
Oh no, have we not left that time where the gamers are mad? Are they at least mad about things they should be mad about yet?
Well, I'm not mad, so maybe I'm just projecting.
I'm not mad either.
Sunset was a game that involved housekeeping. I don't know much about the actual gameplay. Most of what I remember is that the way Tale of Tales marketed it, it was clear that the player would be controlling a black female avatar, and a lot of people were upset specifically about that choice, and Tale of Tales made clear that they were interested in telling the player, if you are going to view this game, you are going to view it from the perspective of a black female character. If you are going to interact with this game, you will do it, by relating to this character who may be very different from who you have come to expect in your games. Especially if you are in the typical gaming demographic from the aughts. And of course, there is something to be said about, like, well, which developers can honestly craft certain experiences and honestly convey certain experiences, but just merely the simple ask toward the gaming public of, please experience this game through a non-white, non-male avatar, it caused a surprising stir, or I guess maybe not so surprising. We were all there at the time.
A stir was caused.
We all know what the internet was like.
Wow. I mean, I guess it's a struggle for anyone to see something through a perspective other than their own, or to recognize that even if you don't agree with someone else's perspective, seeing how they came to those beliefs as valid is a struggle for anyone and everyone. I think the term is intersectionality, that to explore any idea, you have to look at it from the perspective of many different diverse people to get a more full understanding of what's going on. Trying to get the right answer often results in ignoring different perspectives and coming to a less robust answer. But if you get a much more robust answer by thinking about the different intersections of different demographics and how they might view something, even if you can't say this is the one true thing, you have significantly more information about it than you would have before if you were asserting something as an objective truth. And I think that's a lot of work for people. And I think to a certain degree, that's part of why it's so hard to ask that.
It's difficult because I certainly don't want to imply that, a couple of like white developers can just commission a non-white character model and say, okay, great, right, now we are portraying the experience of someone who is not white, because that's not how anything works.
I forget who said it, but the saying is nothing about us without us is the sort of
yes,
yeah, it's
I
the
think
tagline.
That's so there's clearly like a separation between games about an avatar's experience and how their experience is shaped by who they are and how they interact with society and how society interacts with them. And then there are games like, League of Legends, or games where a character model doesn't necessarily need to reflect, certain aspects of their identity. Like, I don't think Ashe the Frost Archer needs to control differently or have different lore or have different anything because she is a woman. And if she had been a man, I don't think that needs to affect how the player controls her or anything like that. Well,
Ashe wasn't in the Arcane animated series, so when
she doesn't matter. No. I should have used a different
But when she
example.
comes into the lore, to the current lore, then it's going to matter a whole lot. So we need to make sure this statement is included so we don't retroactively invalidate the statement. But no, I agree. It's because League of Legends had a narrative, component in the background, but it wasn't the backbone of the game.
No, right. And so I think that art is always going to be a great way to learn about other people's experiences. I don't think that I don't think white developers are ever going to be able to bring like the Black experience or the Native American experience or the Indian experience to a white audience. Yeah. And it's kind of annoying that like even in my head I'm still thinking about like, okay, well, what experience can we bring to the white men who are used to having because a certain type of experience. Like I think I'm still thinking in like a very restrictive set of terms where I do in my own mind place white guys in the center of the concept of gamer. So we're really having like a lot of conversations right now. We're having a conversation about like how to produce diverse games, how to produce inclusive games, how to ask a player to identify with an avatar that is physically or experientially, demographically dissimilar to them. But then also, how do we continue to move forward in the game space where we have for so long centered the white male experience and the white male physique?
Right. And, there's no easy answer to that. Any like artificial trying to just inject it will always come off as artificial. And I think at the end of the day, people who are creating games, creating anything, can only write to their own experience, can only create to their own experience. And so I don't think the ask is so much to ask people to... You lost me?
Do you mind repeating that last bit? Yeah, it froze for a second.
Yeah, I essentially just said that anyone can only create to their own experience. And we can't... So the ask isn't that we are asking people to interject something that they don't know, so much as it is to, bring people in. Because games are, for the most part, a development process of many different creative people working together to make a single thing. And so there is an opportunity with every game to include diverse experiences and thus be able to have those conversations. So rather than like trying to get the white male demographic to bridge an empathy gap, I think the question is more of, well, we just need to continue making a plurality of art that expresses a plurality of experiences, and through the natural interest of wanting to play a good game, people will form those connections. Whether socially speaking we want to make that happen faster by saying, hey, go do the thing, it's your moral obligation. I just don't think that's how people engage with art as a leisure activity. They have to want to. And as long as you're making a quality game, people will want to. So it's just about the plurality of people bringing their experiences to the development process.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to artificially inject it anywhere. Just don't hamper it from being there, and it will be there.
I think that is why I'm still so happy to see the indie space flourishing. I paused there because I think some people would disagree with me. I think that there always seems to be an impending crisis in indie game development, but I participate pretty heavily in the Seattle Indies developer space, and it's just so awesome to see the number and the breadth of people who want to bring out the games that they want to play and that they want other people to play. Like, I just feel like we have a much healthier creative space in games than we had 20 years ago, 10 years ago. And I think that, it's going to keep getting better. The one thing that I am really interested in watching in the future is, as things like character creation become more ubiquitous, are we maybe going to be losing any of the potential of games as a tool to build that empathy bridge? Because I love a good character creation screen.
Yeah.
But in some ways, I do wonder if I benefited from being asked to play as a type of person who I do not see myself as. Like the number of like Lynx and Ash Ketchums and, whatever the Gears of War guy's name is. I know he has a name, but neither one of us knows it. Master Chiefs and just like so many.
Master Chief's name is John, by the way.
John Master Chief? John Chief.
Master Chief John.
The Chief.
Master Chief John.
I think that, I don't know. Again, we've heard that I don't like to say things too definitively, but I strongly suspect that it was formative for me to be asked to kind of embody a type of person who I would not maybe ordinarily identify with. And I think that games really do have a lot of potential in that regard if we just say, okay, like, here is a game called Sunset. The protagonist is a black woman. You don't get to choose. This is who this person is, and if you're going to experience this story, you'll experience it through her eyes, you know?
Right.
I also think it's interesting that we have been having such a loud conversation about pronouns and people being, you know, referred to by the pronoun that fits them best, which, again, I think neither one of us... I think both of us agree that that is the best and most respectful the way to be. Mm-hmm. But when I play a game like League of Legends or Heroes of the Storm, often characters will be referred to by the pronouns of that character or by they. A person will say, oh, be careful, Caitlyn is coming up, she's going in for a gank. They won't say that, that's a weird thing to say, but they'll say, like, oh, Valera, she's so annoying. And they have no idea who's sitting on the other side of that computer screen. They don't know how that person identifies. They don't know what pronouns that person uses. But that's something that's the players on my team are seemingly extremely comfortable with. I've had friends who identify as male and use he, him pronouns be referred to as she, her, or they, them, and they will not like issue a correction. And I think that's another really, really interesting thing that just demonstrates like the malleability of identity within video games.
I see that a lot with Dead by Daylight players as well. When you're playing as a survivor, people refer to survivors, no matter who's playing them, as the character and as the pronouns of the character. And it is very fluid, even if you know who is playing. If you're in video chat, or if you're in chat with another player that you know who is playing as one of the survivors in Dead by Daylight, I've heard people talk to their friend that they're playing with the pronouns of the character that they're playing. And it is very fluidly just accepted, not commented on by people who play Dead by Daylight, a lot, habitually. And it is fascinating that identity itself is playful in the space of games.
Yeah, and you know, for all of the games I've played where a character has been referred to by a certain, you know, set of pronouns, I have never seen someone correct a person in chat and actually say, excuse me, I am a he, how dare you? Or, you know, and that's just, it's super fascinating to me, like how easily we can slide into these other personas.
Right. I mean, I guess the other way of saying that is how easily we can allow ourselves to empathize with other personas.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to talk about because, of course, I would just, you know, want to reiterate that this is not apologia for misgendering.
Yes, no. It's you just respect how people want to be treated, y'all. That's the best way to be. It's not your business. Just respect how people want to be treated. Well, to piggyback off of that, just because I love making you say things more definitively than you're comfortable with, could I ask about, or can you think of a time where you really struggled in your own play experience to bridge that empathy gap? It could be a long time ago or recent, but I think maybe the listeners would like to hear about, like your friend struggled to identify with Ash, if you've had an experience where you struggled to identify with a character you played as in a game.
You know, I did have moments early on where I would be asked to, like, romance a character who I was not, like, attracted to or something like that. And I think, you know, that I've watched a lot of movies and a lot of TV shows where a character will be flirting with another character, and I'm not interested in that other character, but that's fine. I am not either of them. They can make their own choices, right. And I'm just going to sit here creepily watching them. But when I'm the one who kind of has to go through the motions and I'm the one who has to romance the character, I can definitely remember having some moments of like, I'm not sure I am really digging this. And I feel like that discomfort, it was like a very adolescent experience for me. I don't think that there have been a lot of similar uncomfortable moments that I can remember in recent history. But I think that being asked to play through a scenario that was maybe not true to myself, but that was kind of true to this other person, and like facilitating that scenario, I'm kind of glad to have been asked to do that, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Romance in games is such a topic all onto its own, because there have been so many examples of it being done just mostly poorly in the history of games.
And unfortunately, yes.
And there are games that do it really well when it's like their sole focus. You know, certain kinds of dating sims, Boyfriend Dungeon, had some missteps, but was overall very lauded. What was the Game Grumps one? The one where you date the dads.
Oh, yeah, Dream Dad.
Dream Daddy. Something like that. It's much easier.
Is it Dream Dad or Dream Daddy?
I think it's Dream Daddy.
Dream Daddy. You're right. It's Dream Daddy.
The song makes it so much easier for me to remember. Gosh. But I could see how that would create a difficulty with the empathy gap, because you know who you're attracted to, whether or not you're attracted to someone or anything at all, is just so personal and specific to every single person. I can see that as a game developer, it would be really hard to write like a singular experience that didn't challenge the empathy of most people, because no given romance is going to match most people's connection with romance. Like that's an amazing hurdle to climb.
Yeah, and I do think that the more you open yourself up to seeing certain scenarios play out or facilitating certain scenarios in games, the more you kind of go, okay, like the more kind of like the path becomes paved, the wheels get greased, you know?
You get better at the empathy thing.
I think so. And I think that this is also where there is a benefit to that fluidity between the player looking at the avatar and going, that is me, and the player looking at the avatar and going, that is someone I care about. Because if I am playing, you know, an early Harvest Moon game, and one of the objectives is to be romancing one of the women of the town, because you don't have an option to romance the men.
Make that baby who will never grow up.
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
The infinite baby.
The infinite baby. I played so much Harvest Moon as a kid, and I romanced every woman the game would let me romance, and you just don't have an option not to. If you want to participate in that part of the gameplay, you will be romancing a woman, whether or not that is what you are personally interested in doing.
Right.
And I personally don't see any problem with asking a player to be like untrue to their own interests, like in that way. I do think that it's likely empathy building to ask a player to be facilitating experiences that are different from the ones that they would naturally have. I think that's part of the power of the fantasy of games. I just think that we have not been very broad in the number of experiences we have been
exposing ourselves
asking players to. Yeah, exactly.
I get that. I get that a lot. All right. Well, I think it's about time that we wrap this up. This was an amazingly interesting conversation, and I'm so glad we had the chance to sit and talk about it. But I'm just going to go ahead and transition into asking you to tell my lovely viewers, listeners at this point, because it's a podcast, where they can find you. How can they see more of your analyses of games and things like that?
Yeah, so first off, thanks for chatting with me. This is something I've been thinking a lot about, so getting to bounce these ideas has been really great, and I look forward to hopefully reading what anyone else has to say about it. I can be found at my channel, youtube.com/afterthoughts, and that is where you can go to hear more non-committal opinions about games.
Very informed non-committal opinions about games.
It's very firm, strongly stated opinions that are also true.
Oh, wonderful. I'll also include a link in the description in case you're having trouble Googling it.
Ah, well, thank you very much. And yeah, super good talking to you. Hopefully we will do this again sometime.
Absolutely. You might be my first repeat guest. Who knows?
Oh my god.
Excitement. All right. Thank you again. Thank you to all of you at home. And as always, stay true. And we're done. We did it.
Right on.